We're back. Quick carry on with assumption and flaw questions, and we're going to jump into some problems. But here's the idea. What we talked about in the last video was that if we're going to make a logical argument, we have to chain together these different things, right? If A then B then C, therefore A then C. That's the classic LSAT format, right? This leads to that leads to this, and then we can conclude, well, if I start with the beginning thing, I'll end up there. The assumption aspect of it is identifying one of those pieces, those parts, is missing. We're not making the full connection from A all the way to C. Something's missing, and there are two options 90+% of the time. There's some rare exceptions to this rule, but I really wouldn't worry about it right now. And that would be either we need to make this piece, the B, equivalent to the final result, or we include some different chain here that if I have B, therefore I would end up with C. Both of those would make us get to our result C. Now, let's talk for just a moment about what makes something a flaw question. A flaw question is going to ask you, given a certain scenario, what's the flaw or what's the error in the reasoning? And the way that we handle this, and in fact, really, the way that we handle every single logical reasoning question on the LSAT is as follows. The first thing you always do is read the question stem. Meaning which, for example, I'm just going to do this in a moment, but look at this for a second. This one right here, I have question number 1. I don't even read over this yet. I look straight down over here where it says, a flaw in the argument is that the author what? The reason you do this, and all of these, in this particular video and the next couple of ones, are going to involve flaws, but if you target what it is that you're looking for. So in question 1, I'm looking for a flaw in the argument. So in this case, when we read a question stem, we see that we're asked to find what's the flaw. Now, step 2. Always, really, regardless of what this is right here, but always find your conclusion. You're going to read over the text, and you're going to see what is the takeaway. What is it the author wants us, what is this? What's the little 3 triangle dots, right? What is the author saying? Therefore, something, something, something. And the way that we look for this, generally speaking, is try to find a keyword that indicates that the author is drawing a conclusion. Okay? And some of those, very common ones, would be something like, say, thus, or therefore, or, the most easy one, of course, would be something like in conclusion, etc. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We first figure out what the conclusion is, and then we're going to try as much as we possibly can to write it down in shorthand. It doesn't necessarily have to just be exactly A, therefore B. Some of them are a little more subtle than that, but we're going to try to do some kind of shorthand where we are figuring out the term. Write down the terms of what it is that we're talking about. Right? What leads to what? What causes what? What things have a relationship with each other? Okay, this is very critical, this aspect right here. What terms are we dealing with? Okay? And then the third bit is going to be find your evidence. Now, evidence is just going to be this stuff right here, right? If I have A, then that means B, and then da-da-da-da, and then da-da-da-da, and in conclusion, A, therefore C. Now, once you've found the conclusion, the evidence, depending on where it is in the conclusion, is either going to be, either after the conclusion or in front of it. The conclusion is usually found, in one of two spaces. We're either going to find the conclusion at the end of the paragraph or at the beginning. Sometimes it's buried in the middle, but, generally once you've identified it. Then what you look for with the evidence is going to have to be, if it comes at the end, the evidence is in front of it, right? Or if we start with the conclusion at the beginning, all scientists should, wear purple socks, okay, right at the beginning. Just making that up for no reason whatsoever. Then, well, why, right? The evidence is stuff that answers a why. Why should we believe whatever the conclusion is? And some of these words that we're looking for, the key words to identify what is evidence or reasons for it, are stuff like And I'm not going to write all this out, but you can kind of think about it. Stuff like because, since, I'm trying to have. I'm having a hard time coming up with some more now. We'll see them as we go through the examples, but just basically in both cases, we can help. It helps us to identify conclusions and the evidence pieces by looking at the keywords. Okay, so we have step 1, find the flaw or read the question stem. In this case, it's going to be finding flaw questions. Step 2, find our conclusion. Find the conclusion using our keywords and write down our terms. Right? What leads to what? Which terms have a relationship with each other? Then, step 3, find what is the evidence that is offered for why we should believe that conclusion, and kind of locate these using keywords as well. Also, write down terms. I keep mentioning writing down terms because it's really important. We'll get to this, because typically if you have a flaw question, it means something's wrong. Those terms don't link together in the correct way. Right? So if I say, example, let me just make up something. Supposing I say A leads to B leads to C, and I say the conclusion is, okay, well, therefore, if I have A, I must have D. Well, wait a minute. Where did that come from? Right? That's not appearing in my evidence anywhere, so how do I match up what I somehow ended up with D, but I don't have that term does not appear in my evidence. So I'm going to need to include something. Something's missing. I'm going to need to make some sort of assumption, right? Like maybe the assumption would be that C is equivalent to D, right? Maybe these two terms are the same, because if that's so, that's fine. Or maybe I just have to throw another thing in here, right? Maybe if I get from C leads to D, if I throw that assumption in there, then I've got this. But the idea is we have to be very careful about identifying our terms. Okay, I feel like I'm kind of going long on this one. But so 3, write down our terms, and then finally, and I think I just actually talked about this right here, after we've done those 3 things, the 4th step is going to be what assumption? What is the missing piece in order to connect the evidence with the conclusion? What assumption do we have to make? And again, boxing it in the purple, it's going to be one of these things. It's either, the terms are equivalent or one term leads to another. All right, this is going long, so I'm going to pause this again. Enough of this. We're going to apply everything we talked about in this video here with the previous video and handle some questions.